Hello and welcome to the Deb Calvert channel here on Bright Talk. I'm Deb Calvert and I encourage you to post questions during the live webinar, or if you're listening on demand, to email me your questions. I would love for this to be interactive because it's a great big topic, and whatever input you have, well, that'll help me to narrow it down and make sure to talk about exactly what you came for. The objective of this presentation is to help sales managers think about the different levers that they can pull to drive sales productivity, and then to be thoughtful and strategic as they pull those levers so that they can have a more balanced and more predictable performance. This particular presentation, it's part of a year-long series that I'm doing for sales managers. You're welcome to look up those other presentations. They all stand alone, but they also work together, and I'm doing one of those every month. Right here, you can go back and pick up the ones you've missed, or you can register for the ones that are coming up. For those of you who are new to Bright Talk, thanks for being here. I'd like to point out just a couple of things to you. First of all, if you have any technical difficulties, the folks at Bright Talk are awesome. Just go ahead and click the orange button that says Get Live Support Now, and they'll help you out via chat. I won't be able to help you because I'm going to keep rolling with the presentation, but I know that they'll take care of you. Something else that I really like is a feature called Attachments and Links, and I like to load that up with bonus content for you. So I'll reference some of the things that I've put in there today as we go. For example, if you decide that you want a PDF of today's slides, either to print right now and take notes on, or to back to later that you'll find. If you are not familiar with me, let me just give you a quick hello, and I'm pleased to meet you. I'd love to connect with you over on LinkedIn. I've been around in the selling world for a whole lot of years, and I do work as a coach and consultant to sales executives and to salespeople. And I have really focused heavily on sales productivity. My company, People First Productivity Solutions, is all about making sure that organizations are equipped and that they're putting people first so that they can get the organizational goals that they want to reach. Okay, I already have a question here. I'm going to definitely answer these questions as they come up in slides. If they are related to slides, I'll take some at the very end too, but your questions that are coming right now, they're great because I'm going to weave them right into what I'm talking about. What you see on screen now, there's a lot going on this slide. Don't forget, you can print out the slides or download them so that you've got this information later. This is really just an overview of some of the things we're going to be talking about. While we're here on this slide, I want to break this down into smaller parts as we go, but while we're here, I might suggest a couple things. First of all, you can use this as a self-assessment. Just right now here on your own, you can think about, of these items that are so important as sales productivity drivers, what are some of the strengths that you already have? And potentially, what gaps might there be for you or for your organization? You see, it's the interplay of all of these elements. The interplay between them is what ultimately causes sales productivity to go up or down. And when I use the term sales productivity, what I mean by that is how productive are you as a team? How productive are you as an individual? How efficient are you in driving to results in as little time as possible, but also without compromising your effectiveness? In other words, productivity doesn't mean I can make more cold calls per hour than I used to be able to, because although that's efficient, it might not be effective. Making more calls per hour is a quantitative measure. It's got nothing at all to do with quality, and true sales productivity is going for both. We're going for both. As a sales manager, one of the competencies that you're going to need, whether you're in retail or whether you're in any other type of field, one of the most important competencies that you're going to need in a management role is critical thinking. Critical thinking so that you can be discerning. Critical thinking so that you can connect the dots and put multiple pieces in place. Critical thinking so that you make good decisions, sound decisions, and you solve problems. And sales productivity is a lot like that. It requires critical thinking to take all of these pieces and put them together and weave them together in a way that makes sense for the organization and for your team. Now, as you're doing this little mini self-assessment, I want to tell you, don't be too hard on yourself or on your organization. If any of these pieces are missing, you should know that actually that's very common. I go into sales organizations of all sizes, and it's extremely rare to see an organization that has all pieces already. Tall standard, that's what you might be striving for, but you're going to take it one piece at a time for incremental improvements. Now, you'll also notice if you are a sales manager that the skills required, the competencies you'd need to be able to do what's listed on screen, those aren't the same ones that you learned in a selling role. So you might need a little outside support to help you get up to speed. And if you have a sales management team all the way up to sales director or VP who has come from inside the sales domain, it might be that nobody has these skills. That's also very common. If you need a little outside help, you can connect with me. I've given you the attachments and link. I've given you a way to connect directly with me and get some sales productivity support. I'd be happy to help you. Whatever you do, though, don't ignore the fact that these are all extremely important to help you be as efficient and as effective as possible. And don't overburden yourself or your sales managers by trying to figure it all out and go it alone. You can get there a lot faster, and in fact, it will cost you a lot less to work with someone who has this expertise and can give you that expertise too. Now, as we all know, sales managers tend to focus on results. Of course you do. That's what you get paid to do. That's what your boss puts into your KPIs and your goals. And that's what your salespeople are focused on too, results. One thing to know about sales productivity drivers is that they are the key. The sales productivity drivers, that's what unleashes the full potential and drives the results that you really want. So if you're looking for results, you can't just say sell more. You have to create the environment and provide the tools and have the awareness of what motivates people. And by the way, make sure you've got the right people. These are all the underpinnings that ultimately make it easier so that you will get those desired results. Okay, let's break them down. There's a lot here, as I said, and I'm going fast, and I'm getting more questions. Thank you. Keep those coming. The sales productivity drivers that we're going to talk about, we're breaking them into individual pieces so that we can talk about them a little more specifically. And the first one I want to talk about is your sales force. Your sales force needs to be equipped with product knowledge, and if you're like most sales organizations, you are getting an A+ on setting them up with really good product knowledge. That's a foundation. Don't stop doing that. But on top of that, if they're going to be highly productive, they also need to have market knowledge. That will include business acumen to understand what their customers experience and to know about what's going on with your competitors and to know how your company fits in the marketplace. And what are your strategies? Are you after market share? If so, sellers who understand that they can make better decisions. In addition to product knowledge and market knowledge, obviously they also need to have selling competencies. You need them to be effective in doing the work of selling. Now, if you've never really heard that term, or if you're not quite sure what I mean by selling competencies, let me give you a little insight. Competencies broadly means the skills, the knowledge, and the traits that someone brings into a role or acquires in that role. So you're hiring people, and perhaps you're hiring for certain experience, certain skills and knowledge. You might not be factoring in the traits that are also required to be successful in your organization selling the products and services that you sell. And that's really important. If you've ever had a situation where you've hired somebody who looks good on paper but just doesn't work out, it's probably because you weren't using a behavioral interviewing system. You might not have defined the competencies, and you ended up with people who didn't have the traits, the ideal traits that would make them effective in that role. So I say all of that because a lot of times sales managers haven't been exposed to it. And if that includes you, right now I would recommend that you start reading the Connect to Sell blog. It's over on my website. We're doing a series. It's a 20-part series about being a sales manager and being able to leverage sales productivity drivers. And there are several posts in there that are about selling competencies and a better way of interviewing, so you make sure you get the right people who can help you be more productive. Now, when it comes to time, right, your salespeople not only need all the skills and the knowledge and the traits, but they also need time. They need time to sell. And one of the things that you can do as a sales manager is be just diligent about protecting their time. Get in there and do some analysis. What is it that's in their way? What's keeping them from prioritizing time spent with customers or on the activities that advance the sale to get the results that you're looking for? If you need a little help with that, I've given you a link. There's a presentation here on this channel. It's research-based, and it's about the culprits that steal sellers' valuable time. So if you're looking for a way to do that diagnostic work and to put time back into your seller's day, well, that's a fantastic way to become more productive. It's an easy one. It's low-hanging fruit for you. A spoiler alert, and I say this with a great deal of confidence, no matter how good your sales organization is, no matter how efficient and effective you are, I bet you that there are still a lot of things that you can do to increase the time that your sellers spend on selling. So check that out and see what you can do to put some time back into their day. Last but not least, for you to be thinking about when it comes to your sales force is to remember what it is that motivates people. See, we take this kind of lazy shortcut in the world of selling, and we say, well, all sellers are money motivated. So if I want them to sell more, I'll just pay them more. I'll put a bonus or an incentive on that, and then they'll sell it. The problem is that that's a misperception. It's not true. And if you are always incentivizing people with commission and bonuses and money, you're missing out on deeper level intrinsic motivation that's more sustainable, the kind of motivation that causes people to be self-motivated as opposed to you having to do all that work and find all that budget to do the extrinsic motivation. You're going at it the way that's more difficult, and if you know more about intrinsic motivation, you'll become more effective. And that too, by the way, is covered in this series, which is all about becoming more effective as a sales manager. So consider that a companion piece to what I'm sharing with you here. Productivity driver. Remember, I'm just introducing you to all of them. Finding out what they are is step one, so that you can then know which levers to pull and get the right interplay between all of these. The second sales productivity driver that we need to talk about is you. There's the sales force, and then there's the sales manager. And based on all the registrants for this webinar, I know I'm not talking to everyone, but over 90% of the people who registered do have sales management titles. So please indulge me if that's not your title. That's why I'm speaking to you as if it were. Now, you are pivotal. you, the sales manager, you drive productivity in all the ways that you see on screen. And the webinars I mentioned in this series here on this channel, this 12-part series that I'm doing for sales managers, every single one of these topics is going to be covered there, or already has been covered there. I'm just going to talk about one of them today, maybe two. The first one, though, is the one I want to spend the most time on because sales coaching is terribly misunderstood. Most people with great intentions think that they are sales doing is mentoring. And here's the difference. Mentors have a superior level of experience or knowledge. Mentors share their knowledge and experience. They show people how to do things. They tell them what they need to do to be successful. But that's not coaching. Those demonstrations that you're doing out in the field, that's not coaching. All of that is mentoring. Mentoring matters. It has positive impact. Don't stop doing it. But you're also going to want to learn how to be a sales coach. What coaches do is they ask questions and they promote self-discovery and they hold up a mirror for self-reflection. It's like in professional sports, it's like when they play back the game footage so that the players can see what it is they did and what they could do differently. Coaching isn't the same as mentoring. If you do both, you're going to be much more effective. One of the ways that coaches are extremely effective is that because they're involving the seller, they are ennobling that seller. They're making that seller feel worthy and important because of their own self-discovery. And because it's their own ideas that get out on the table, sellers are more likely to have buy-in for those goals that they set. And they're going to be more committed to changing their actions because they discovered it on their own. You just facilitated that process of self-discovery. And that's a huge tool when it comes to retaining talent. And the other bullet I will mention here. Sales managers often don't know what to do to retain the talent that they have on their team or to be someone who has employees who are highly engaged. And coaching is really one of the most powerful ways that you can accomplish all of that, plus drive better results. So it's a big win for you as a sales manager if you also learn to be a sales coach. There's a link in there in the attachment so you can go straight to a webinar that defines those differences in more detail. You know, here at People First Productivity Solutions, we also offer sales manager training. Sales Manager Essentials is our program that's wildly popular. We've been doing that program and modifying it for over 10 years, and it's something that we do in small groups with managers and also with large teams and organizations. So just let me know if you think that's something that you or your organization might need. Okay, back to our sales productivity drivers. This one might seem obvious, but it's something that often demands a little more attention. You know that results only come from certain activities. And if you want the right results, your sellers and you have to focus on the right activities. They can't focus on the ones that aren't going to advance the sale. They can't focus on the activities that are burning up a lot of their time, and neither can you. So it's all about knowing what those activities are that directly lead to results. And then it's about setting those expectations and communicating to your sellers so that they develop those abilities to enact those activities that cause those results. As you're thinking about this, let me give you some questions that you can ask yourself. First of all, are you measuring what matters? And what I mean by that is when it comes to activities, are you measuring the ones that truly do get results? I run across a lot of organizations where, for example, what they're measuring is the number of calls per hour or per day. And I'm not measuring that really. you are in a highly transactional business and have a well-known brand name, quantity of calls isn't very likely to increase quantity of sales. You've got to have a qualitative measure, and you've got to have activities like pre-call research, like fact-finding, like advancing the sale to a demo. Measuring those kinds of activities because they're the ones that get you closer to results. That's way more important than just measuring pure numbers. You might also be asking, are the expectations that you've set clear to every member of your team? And is training in place so people can learn both what they need to do and how they should be doing it? When it comes to those activities that you're prescribing, making sure it's the right one, that's step one. Making sure that you've got the right quantity, not an arbitrary number, but the right quantity. And then also making sure that you explain why. Why this activity? Why this many or this much? See, it's the why that causes people to feel motivated and committed to doing what you're asking. If they don't feel motivated and committed, you're just going to find yourself micromanaging and constantly frustrated because people aren't doing what they're supposed to do. And if you're in that situation, you can drive higher rates of sales productivity by simply helping them understand why it matters. And here's a spoiler alert, why it matters isn't that they're going to reach their revenue goal. There's something more intrinsic that will motivate them more. And if you get to know your salespeople, you might know, for example, that one of them is building a new house and that there are some unexpected expenses that came with that. The intrinsic motivation to provide for their family and to have their dream house will get you a lot further than simply saying, do this so you meet your quota. You already know this because you probably did exactly the same thing when you were in sales and you were looking for the value that was individual and personal for your buyers. Well, I recommend that you think about using that type of motivation as a sales manager to drive the sales activities. And what I'm showing you here now are the ways that these various sales productivity drivers do interrelate to each other, and you use them side by side. The fourth one also probably seems pretty obvious, but what drives sales productivity? One of the things that drives it is that your customers actually get results. I mean, this is common sense. Happy customers come back. Because they got results, they come back. And the obvious link to productivity is that makes it easier for you and your sellers to do your job because it costs less to have customer retention than it does to be spending time on customer acquisition. You'll be more productive if you have more customers who come back more often and who give you great referrals. That's the obvious link. Let me give you a few other links. The reasons why customer results are also going to drive more sales productivity. Well, here's one, and it's a little bit complicated, but let me walk you through it. Employee engagement. That's defined as when an employee feels an emotional connection to their work, they will apply additional discretionary effort. So employee engagement, when your sellers feel emotionally connected, they're going to work harder. This is correlated in reams of evidence. It's directly correlated to higher levels of customer satisfaction. Higher levels of customer satisfaction, again, that leads to customers coming back. We know that produces both more top-line revenue and better profitability because less money is being spent on customer acquisition. And I'm not making this up. This is all research-based. If you want more information about any of this research, just let me know. I'll be happy to share it with you. One thing I've included for you, though, in the attachments is a checklist. We built this just for sales managers. It's a daily checklist of the little things, the simple things that you can do every day that will improve employee engagement. Those happy sellers who are emotionally connected will then apply additional discretionary efforts and unleashes productivity and customer satisfaction. Here's something else. You know, success breeds success. When your customers are happy, your sellers are more confident. And your confident sellers, they sell with a different attitude and a different mindset, and they carry that confidence, they convey it to other new prospects and other customers. So you're likely to see an effect of those customer results if you share them and if people understand them. You're going to see that play out in driving more sales as well. And last but not least, this is a big one. You know, it's easier to sell and it takes less time to close sales when buyers are doing more of the work. You know from customer experience research, or you know because you are yourself a consumer, you know that a positive experience, one where you get to put your own imprint on the final product, the one where you feel like you were heard and where the solution is exactly what you asked for, and you got to participate in creating what you want. Right? If you go to Build-A-Bear workshop, that's your own little bear. If you go to Chipotle or Subway or Mod Pizza or any of those other chains that are popping up, you have real ownership and you actually will pay more and enjoy your end product more because it's exactly what you wanted. And our buyers, even in B2B, are no different. If they have an opportunity to contribute to crafting the solution or to shaping the nuances related to delivery or service or anything else, what you're getting is buy-in before you ask for the buy. It's really hard to say no thank you to something that you helped to create. So you can be more productive if your sellers are involving buyers and doing the work with them, not for them, in crafting those solutions. If you want to know more about that, by the way, the book Stop Selling and Start Leading, it's based on buyer research, and it talks in depth about how to do that. Sales productivity driver number 5 is your product and what you offer. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because you might not have control or influence over all these items on screen there. But what you do have is the ability to create messaging and to make sure that your sellers understand the right ways to counter objections and to correct any misperceptions in the marketplace and to put the messages out there in alignment with your strategies. Because frankly, if it's not you who is influencing all of that, well, it's going to be the marketplace, which is influenced by your competitors. Your competitors are also messaging about you and your products, and that message is also coming back to your sellers through the buyers. So we want to be proactive here, and you want to drive productivity by making sure that your offering is well understood. And that goes hand in hand with this productivity driver. The insights that you gain, the more you know about your market, the better. Now, I said earlier that your sellers should have an understanding of the market. This is about you and what you know about the market. Don't just delegate this to market research or to product development or to some other arm of your business. As a sales manager, you should also know these things. Doing this, by the way, would require you to think of your role as one that's very strategic. You might need to get plugged into more of the management side of your job. If you're doing a lot of frontline selling and mentoring, you might not be leaving yourself time to learn about these kinds of activities and to get this kind of knowledge. So be careful here. If you don't know about these things, you're going to be forced to always be reactive, late to the party. When you do know about these things, you can be proactive. To do that, you have to be out amongst your clients. You can't get all of this information from a dashboard. You have to be plugged into your industry. You have to be networking in your community. You have to go to conferences. You have to talk to your peers. You've got to understand more than just what's happening with your sales team and your goals. And when you do that, you're going to be able to stay ahead of trends. You'll be able to spot them and know what the opportunities are that come from them. And you'll be able to derive those new strategies to keep you positioned advantageously going forward. So that's why I say don't just leave this all up to senior sales management or the marketing department. You, at the front line, you have the best shot of getting this information and responding to it quickly. Now let's come back to the sellers themselves. We talked about them a little bit earlier, but what I want to talk about now is the interplay between what you're doing with your sales force and how that equips them to be successful. This has to do with those competencies I mentioned, making sure that you hire for them, making sure that you onboard people so that they are doing the job right from day one. There's no guesswork. Continually helping your salespeople to develop through the coaching you offer and through training that they access, as well as the management part of your job, setting those expectations, giving regular feedback, evaluating performance, helping people to progress and continually grow in the work that they do. This drives productivity for all the obvious reasons, but for another one. And this is especially true with Gen X and millennials. People will stay with organizations who invest in them. People are motivated when they know they have an opportunity, committed to organizations who they feel are valuing them. Every single thing that you see on screen here makes it possible for your sellers to understand their job better, to do their work better, and to feel better about the organization. The feel better, it's more than a kumbaya, nice to have kind of luxury. Feeling better about the work is a part of employee engagement, which, by the way, is the secret to just about any business result you want to drive. That's not Deb saying that. That's a ton of research that says that. Remember, employee engagement is the emotional connection. So it is about how they feel about the workplace and the organization. It's the emotional connection that drives additional discretionary effort. And every salesperson, well, every employee, including you, we all get to choose every single day how much effort we're really going to put into the work we do. We need salespeople. We really need salespeople to come ready to put all the additional discretionary effort that they can into the work they do. And that's why the emotional connection matters. Number 8, let's talk about your systems. Your systems, you probably have lots of them. You've got a tech stack, and you've got new stuff coming at you every day, and you've got leads that are being generated. You've got content marketing strategies. You've got a whole lot that we could put under this umbrella of sales systems. Pretty much anything that you call sales enablement, and then some. Now, fundamentally, what we have to think about here if we're going to use these systems to drive productivity is that we have to remember that they're all tools. Your sales process, it's a tool. Your CRM, that's a tool. Whatever you're using to generate leads, those are tools. Your comp plan, it's also a tool. So as a tool, it's only as good as the user's ability to correctly use it. And that includes you as a user of a tool. We can't over-rely on a CRM to drive sales. It won't. It will support sales. It will make you more productive if it's being used correctly, and if it's not being overused so that it becomes a stealer of time instead of an efficiency. So you've got to keep your eyes and ears open. How are the salespeople don't assume that they are just making excuses. Really listen to what they're saying and involve them in making the utilization of the tools better so that they truly can drive productivity. And then keep your eyes and ears open for new tools. Attend conferences, follow various influencers on LinkedIn, read magazines and books. Change is coming at us so fast, and your competition will get an edge on you if they're better informed than you are. So to make your systems truly productivity drivers and not productivity blockers, you have to be savvy and smart about the ways that you use those tools, and you have to be nimble as well so that the tools are replaceable as new ones come around, and so that they complement each other and don't cause needless frustrations for your sellers. You know, your company is also a sales productivity driver. The brand of your company is a big one. The brand of your company attracts sales talent to you. So you want to be sure to monitor what's being said on Glassdoor. Take a look at your website and see how inviting it is or isn't to potential sales talent. And then think about your brand reputation. Think about the way it affects sales. Certainly your brand reputation is influenced by your sales team and the messages they put out there. It's also influenced by your customers and what they say. This is why we want those customers to be happy. And the brand could also be influenced by your competitors if you don't manage the message and if you let them say things that might not be fully correct. Your company is also a sales productivity driver because if you have good internal partnerships and if you are absolutely aligned with strategy and you're creating efficiencies in the handoffs of work and you have good systems for processing orders and fulfilling what you promise to your customers, if all of those relationships are intact for you internally and you're vigilant about making sure that efficiencies are in place for your sellers, then your company can help you to drive sales productivity in a whole lot of ways. And if you've never had this conversation with your colleagues, it's a really good one to open up the dialogue, to be able to go to finance, to be able to go to human resources, to be able to talk to operations and production about their role in driving sales productivity and the ways that they can help you to do that. Well, that's actually a really strategic thing for you to do. All right, last but not least, because that clock is ticking, your culture that you create will also drive productivity. And I say your culture, meaning you personally. Certainly there could be a company culture, and you want to be respectful of that, and you want to be aligned with that if it's a positive one particularly. But your team also has a culture. Your sales team has its own culture, and you should be in charge of that. That culture is about the mood. It's about not only getting the right results, but getting them the right way. So you've got to be clear about how we do things here. What is the right way to get those results? Culture creates a sense of belonging for people, which goes right back to engagement. Culture is what helps people to see themselves in the big picture and to feel like their work has meaning, beyond the goal, beyond the quota, beyond the commission check, that their work has meaning. Culture is what celebrates shared values and the wins that come out of them. Culture is where success breeds success. Culture is where people go to get development and to be a little bit vulnerable so that they can get the help that they need. Culture is glue that holds your team together even when the going gets rough. So think about what is it that you want to create as a culture, and when you have it in mind, then you'll have to take those deliberate steps. When you have ironed it all out and you have that environment and you are taking the actions to maintain that culture, then it becomes a really strong positive force. It becomes an undercurrent that constantly drive sales productivity. Now here's, this one's going to be a little eye strain. This is just another way to look at sales productivity in the context of everything we've been talking about. The formula at the top in the green bar, that's truly a formula. If you want sales performance, you have to have a sales team that's ready. You have to have productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness. And it's got to be all those pieces fitting in together so that you get the optimum results that you can. Now these rows here, the first row in yellow, those are the 4 drivers of sales performance. If you're not making goal, I guarantee it's for one of those reasons. And as you look down each column then, what you see here is a bit of a definition and then some ideas about what you can do to make sure that you're ready, or ideas to make sure you're productive or efficient or effective. So if you put it all together, again, using this as self-assessment, you're going to be able to diagnose what you're doing well and what you could do so that your sales productivity is stronger. Last but not least, I get this question a lot when I talk about sales productivity. So I just want to address it. When you look at everything I just described, and if you envision yourself paying attention as a sales manager to every one of those bullet points that you've seen on all these slides, it might, at first, feel like you'd have to be a micromanager to make all of that happen. But it's not true. It would not make you a micromanager. It would make you a really good manager, because you're going to be developing people and you're going to be enabling the sales professionals on your team, and they're going to feel good about the work that they're doing. And because you're coaching them, they're going to be working a lot more independently. They're going to be more proactive because you are. They're going to solve more of their own problems, and they're going to see why what you're asking them to do makes sense. So they're going to choose those activities more often. You won't have to micromanage. You'll be able to manage strategically and to become stronger as a manager as your team becomes even more productive. All right, we covered a whirlwind there. I think I got the questions that were asked. We'll do a last call here. If you have any more questions for me, this is the time to post them. If you're listening on demand, the attachments and the links, they're all still right. I encourage you to subscribe to this channel, to come back for more content, to follow up with me on LinkedIn or via email so that I can get your questions answered. And I would love to talk with you if there's anything more that we can be doing to help you out, because I believe that every sales manager can unleash higher levels of productivity in their sales team, and the outcomes are positive. They're good for everyone when you think about the whole picture like I've described here. All right, thanks for being here. Good luck to you as you start working on sales productivity.